Okay. Good morning, everyone. So first, thank you for inviting. So today I'm very happy to be here to present some of our recent research on video understanding. So our first work was about video classification with channel separated network. This is a joint work with Hang, Lonjo, and Math. So let me give you a little bit motivation of this work. So given we all know that 2D group or depth-wide convolution obtain a very good accuracy and computation trade-off, like exception ResNet or SuperNet. The question here for us to understand, like we really want to understand, is that will group-wide or depth-wide convolution also have for 3D CNN, especially for in the problem of like video classification. And if it does, so we want to understand which factor matter the most in 3D group con CNN. And lastly, where the best trade-off of 3D group con CNN. And this study mainly empirical evaluate to answer this kind of question, mainly like focus on understand those kind of questions. So before moving into that, let me come back and revisit like the background of like group and depth-wide convolution. So when we look at the depth-wide, like the convolution, the conventional convolution where we have like all of the DAN connection, like all of the input channel get connected or interact with the all of the output channel. And if we move a little bit further, when like we do group convolution, when we group the convolution filter into like smaller group, then only the channel within the group interact with each other. So that limited the number of channel interaction. At the same time, you can save some compute by saving some parameter and flop. But if we go to the extreme case where we go to depth-wide, which is like one convolution in one group, that means we have no channel interaction at all, but we save flop a lot. So in the past, like people more like measure those kind of convolution by looking into like the number of parameters or the number of flop. But in this work, we found another kind of metric also make a lot of like important indication of like how good the model perform, which is channel interaction. Basically, we just count like how many times two input filter got interact or got connected by an output filter. Just simple, just counting them. And here is one example of like one channel interaction. But before moving to that, we look at one kind of model that we apply, mainly focus on ablation in this study. Like we call channel separated network. So formally it's called like a 3D CNN in that all of the convolution are depth-wide, and except for one by one layer, which are normal convolution. So this concept is not new. Basically, it's just like similar like 2D separable network, but here we mainly focus on like ablation on a 3D CNN to understand more better the trade-off. So, but before moving to the ablation, let we go a little bit more like what the intuition, like intuitively what the difference between 3D CNN and CSN. So if we recall the 3D CNN, where each of the 3D convolution, there are two kinds of modeling happening in the normal conventional 3D convolution. The first one is you model the channel interaction because you have DAN connection. Secondly, you also model the local correlation because you have like bigger kernel k by k by k, for example. But in CSN, we try to decouple the two things, which is one by one normal convolution, just mainly do the channel interaction modeling. And the other one is 3 by 3 by 3 depth-wide, just basically model the local correlation. And if the intuition is right, it just acts like more like regularization, because with potentially the full 3D convolution may be over-dense and not necessarily that over-parameter as well. But let's look into the ablation. So here we ablation compare between the CNN and the 3D CNN. On the left-hand side, we look at the baseline of the ResNet 3D, which a bottleneck block. And if we try the concept of like several convolution of 3D, we factorize it one into one by one, followed by 3 by 3 by 3 depth-wide convolution here. So from here to here, the flop is significantly reduced because of the depth-wide convolution. At the same time, all of the channel interaction here been preserved. That means the same number of channel interaction. So basically that's why we call it IB, which is interaction preserved CNN. On the other side, if we move a little bit further, let's say, how about we remove this one? So basically, it becomes like interaction reduced CSN. So now look at how it performs on ablation, on kinetic dataset. We try 3 baseline with different number of layers. And the first observation, what we found is that parameter envelope always reduced significantly, which is expected. But let's look at the shallow setting. We found for the IR-CSN, the drop is about 3%. For the IB-CSN, the drop is just like less than 1%. It's just pretty small. But the more interesting thing is that when we move to deeper setting, actually the CSN even outperform. So we can reduce flop, but we also can increase the accuracy, which is quite interesting. So now we look a little bit further, we understand what made the difference between the CSN and the baseline. So we plot the training curve of the resonance baseline. We actually found that they actually had lower training error compared to the CSN. Basically, it indicated that the baseline overfit more. That means in the 3D normal convolution, we over-parameterize it a little bit. So, but in order to answer the next question, like what matter in 3D root cause, we do a little bit more deeper ablation, where we look not only the bottleneck, but also the symbol block. And we start with symbol block, and we start to increase the number of groups until we get into the extreme case. Similarly, we start with the bottleneck block and try to increase this one until we got to the extreme case, and we start to increase it group one. So basically, we reduce flop significantly on the way. So we plot on of the model together with 2 layers, like different number of layers as well. Here we plot the number of parameters against the accuracy. What we found is that there are like 2 groups of models that have a very probably similar performance in terms of accuracy, but they have very different in terms of number of parameters. And interestingly, the same thing also happened with the number of flops. So the model has different flops, but the same performance. So, and then what we found, maybe there's some other factor that maybe answer the question. So actually, those group of models actually have very similar number of channel interaction. So that means in group convolution, maybe channel interaction is one of the important factors to indicate how good the model performs. So now we take our CSN model and we just like train and retrain to compare to the huge, like different, like various number of steps that model. And what we found is that our models, while performance is comparable to slow fast, but about like 2 to 3 times faster than slow fast. And also we also compare to our previous work on like large scale retraining on 65 million, what we do, and we found also outperform R2+1D, but also like a few times faster. And this number actually are the best ever published result up to date, if I'm not out of date, on Kinetic 400, sorry. And then we also evaluate on Spark 1 million. Again, we got like step result, and on something. And on something we even didn't try too much, like fine tune or something, we just trained on brush, and we got like good result. So to conclusion for the first work is that channel interaction is important in like 3D root cause to indicate how good the model performs. And secondly, the CSN acts as a very good realization. And thirdly, CSN achieved very good like computation and accuracy trade-off. And we already have model, pre-trained model already available for trying. So I move to the second work. So in this work, also about like video classification, but we really focus on multi-model training. And we found interesting, like it's difficult at the beginning, but we figure out how to solve it. This is our joint work with Wei Yao and math. So the motivation here is that exactly the same talk like Rahul mentioned in the morning, that we should move to multi-model. So we do the same way years ago. And we look at now train a single stream. Like let's first look at like how to combine audio and visual. And it asked someone that said, yeah, in theory you should get an easy improvement because you have more information, more data. But in practice, we have a very counterintuitive result. So despite what kind of combination of different multi-model you combine, you always found that your Navy fusion always perform under the best single modality. And it not just happened on one data set, but also another data set. So what is weird, and then we said that maybe we got overfitting too much, or maybe we got the wrong architecture. Let's try to fix some architecture. We try, okay, different architecture like late fusion, mid fusion. We even do like some kind of gating between two channels, like SE gate or non-local gating. And then we also do pre-train it, trim independently and fine-tune later, or do early stopping or drop out. In all cases, only drop out and mid-concat gives a minimum improvement. It's not satisfied. And we thought that maybe there's something, maybe a deeper. And here actually what happened. On the left side is the training and validation curve of kinetic. And this is on Minisport. And we have like this is AV and this is AV. If we look carefully, it's all about overfitting. But there are two main observations. The first thing is that AV overfit more than V. That's why it not outperformed the best single modality. The second one is that three of them overfit differently. This one overfit a lot, and this one overfit less, and this one overfit less. So with that observation in mind, what we found that different modality overfit at different rate. Then if we jointly train them under the same optimization, it's suboptimal, like the same learning rate, the same momentum, the same, basically the same optimization scheme. And then here in this work, we propose a method called gradient blending. Basically, we blend in the supervision signal on the top of the thing to recalibrate the learning rate. So basically, the main intuition is that if the modality learns so fast, we slow them down. If the learning overfit too fast, we slow them down, or the opposite way. And so intuitively, we define some concept called overfitting, OGR, overfitting over generalization, and then we determine how to learn the weight in the multi-loss setting so that we can minimize the OGR, which is overfitting over generalization. We have low form solution and justification in the main paper, but here I just give a few words on the algorithm. It's very simple, and you can do it like a few minutes if you have the workload already. So first, you can sample 10% of your training to yield a pseudo validation set, and you train each of the modality on figure A and B independently. That's simple, right? And after that, you evaluate on training and pseudo validation to get training accuracy and validation accuracy. And after that, you compute the overfitting rate, which is the difference between training accuracy and validation accuracy. And then you also compute the generalization metric, which is validation accuracy. And then you can compute your weight for each of the modality by G over O square. And you normalize them so that all of the weight sum to 1. That's simple. And last step is train this model with the learned weight from the previous one. And that you're done. So now look at the ablation. Surprisingly, with that simple thing, it works so well. So now look at only single kinetic data set. It outperforms the single best modality and maybe late fusion by a good margin across different combination of modality. Even it applies for more than 2 modalities. And we went a little bit further. We evaluate ROC data set and ROC task. This is on audio task. And then we also compare with pre-training, basically pre-train and fine-tune. We compare with dropout, or we compare with auxiliary loss, which is very strong case. Auxiliary loss is that you use 3 loss, but equal weight. And in our case, it's just like outperform. In this case, it's slightly better because in this case, the optimal weights are about equal, or not like the same. And then we compare with state of the art. The same model that we see in the reverse part is this one. And this one. So here, just for reference, here we directly compare for this one, because this one is the same backbone. So we see consistently either training room RAS, fine-tune room slot, or fine-tune room black scale. We see about more than 1% improvement. And one interesting thing is that the flop improvement, like the drop in read, is just like 2 gigaflop, but you gain like more than 1% just for free. So that one we should use multi-model. Okay. So the same thing here, we have like good result on spot and also on audio set. This is audio set. And on this one, we found like 5 to 6% improvement, which is huge for audio set. And in Collusion, in this work, we found that training multi-model network is difficult because it's overfit, and more importantly, it overfit very differently. We need to better optimize that. And random blending is a way to address the overfitting by recalibrate them in the different specs of the modality. And lastly, it's simple, but it's like outperform various baseline. So that's, I just finished my talk, and thank you.